Thanks everyone for joining. For those that don't know me, I'm Conn. I work at TrustPilot, as Sarah just said. I've been an engineer for roughly 14 years in various different companies. I started off as a software dev, then moved to cybersecurity because 3 months into my first job, I got hacked and made that my kind of life choice to not get hacked again. I like to keep fit. I never founded F45 gyms. That's another Conn. He's an Australian rugby player. Really easy to get us confused. That's why I make sure that everybody understands that. As Sarah said, I'm running a fundraiser. Here's a QR code. I know we're at a cybersecurity event. It's fine. It's safe. Please do donate if you have a chance to. Or you can come and grab me later and we'll discuss that. All the money does go to Refuge. I'm running 2 marathons for them next month. Hopefully I won't die. I work for TrustPilot, but I don't speak for them. You know, all of the opinions here, mine and mine alone. So please don't harass anybody at my work. If you don't agree with them, harass me instead. Acknowledging vulnerability, that's where we're going to start. I think it's just important that we all realise that we're actually all vulnerable, right? Acknowledging our vulnerability will actually make us stronger. We have a lot of people in this industry that seem to think that they can say that we have 0 vulnerabilities and everything we do, that's absolutely fine. You know, of course we don't. And then when later it turns out actually they have a lot of vulnerabilities in their system, we should actually just be a bit honest in what we've got in our backs, right? Over the years, it's kind of got worse, right? In the 80s, we had Theric 25, probably an incredibly serious thing that happened. Concurrency error causing radiation poisoning for people that had X-rays. We sometimes hear when we work in web development, what we build doesn't actually kill anyone. In that case, it actually did, right? Repeatedly, before anyone even noticed, which was quite shocking. In the 90s, you see these, more and more people grouping together. DEF CON, Electronic Frontier Foundation. The Y2K bug, which was fixed. Some people might disagree with that because they didn't see the end result, but that's how a good fix happened. You have OWASP starting in the 2000s. That's really, 2010 is beyond that, is where I start coming into my career. I worked at that point in a very small company. There were 7 of us. We didn't know about cybersecurity. That's why we learned, right? So 20 years it took to get to that point, right, before you're getting this awareness. And now we're seeing more and more things. Log4Shell a few years ago, absolutely devastating. I think I didn't sleep for a whole weekend. I spent a month going back and forth doing that when in the company worked. CrowdStrike, the outage, not a good, testing failure. In my opinion, that happened. These things can actually just happen, and we've got to kind of reflect on, we allow lessons learned. We've got to allow those lessons to be learned and be honest and open to when they do happen and kind of accept them a little bit. Admittedly, it was a huge scale, and I appreciate that, but, they weren't aware of it. They made changes. I think that was a good thing. We're now seeing Gen AI. So in the 80s, we had the Morris worm. We now have the Morris 2 worm. The same things going around, using the same exploits, but in a different media. I think a few talks have said that already. A lot of the problems we have with AI, they are the same problem, just in a different medium. And we're seeing more and more agencies kind of getting involved, government agencies that are actually making legislation. We're still seeing the attacks, though, so it's not really helping in that sense. But it is maybe raising awareness. We also, if that doesn't convince you, CVEs every year on year. We see there's a marked improvement from 2015 and the previous 10 years, right? From 2000 to 2015 is hardly any. We're not even hitting 10,000, and now we're at 40,000. That's the most CVEs per year was last year. 463% increase in the past 10 years. And in March 2024, there are 100,000 vulnerabilities without a CVE. So all of these £100,000 tools, £200,000 tools that you buy, they didn't actually know about 100,000 of these vulnerabilities. So maybe ask your supplier if they're going to knock a pound off for each one of those. But I don't know how you get on with that. So with that in mind, we need to mindfully sit in the discomfort of our vulnerability, right? We need to sit there and we need to acknowledge that we're not going to fix everything. A lot of teams, you might be lucky, you work in a huge company that has a platform security team of like 200 people that serves like 10,000 engineers. I mean, I don't really like those ratios, but that's generally it. You might probably work in a small team where you have 700 developers that You have served 5 people in your platform security team, right? But you're not going to get everything done in this. It's going to take time and it's going to build things. And that's where we build trust. So trust is very hard when things are uncertain, right? And there is a lot of uncertainty right now. You have, in some ways, UK government, EU government trying to essentially trying to pull the wool over our eyes with regards to encryption. We have the current US administration shaking up things, rightly or wrongly. I don't want to get into that, but one of the main things is changing how CISA operates. Jen Easterly, fantastic director, and has done a great work there. We rely a lot on our data from CISA, from a lot of the US government agencies, and if they are kind of going to change, we're probably going to have to think how we obtain our data, because the National Vulnerability Database is populated by the work they do. CISA Kev, it's literally got their name in it. It's we need to think how we can actually operate a bit better. Trust can't be built on fallacies. So I like to call this the funnel of discontent. This is how not to build your relationships with your developers. You start with fear, uncertainty, and doubt. You then leads you to poor judgment. You then decide that you're just going to blanket block something because you don't understand it and you don't really want to understand it because you haven't got time. So you just say, stop QR codes. Instead of getting a QR code scanner, just stop all QR codes. That creates barriers, a bit like what we were hearing earlier, shadow IT. We then, as a platform security team, get ignored. So that's pretty much it. You lose that argument. They don't come to you. You don't understand what is going on in your own environment because you need people to tell you these things what the tools can't see. And then constructive feedback builds trust, right? It leads to success. It strengthens these bonds. What we do is we have various check-in points, right? We have a bug bounty program that gives great feedback to us, which we then pass on to teams. We also get good feedback from teams about why these might be very complex situations. Have you ever tried to just completely get rid of an endpoint that every customer under the sun uses? It takes time. You can't just pull it. Your customers are going to get very annoyed. They rely on that. They like that. So you have to engage with vast places beyond security. Change management. External comms. All of these things will help you. And without that good communication, that good feedback that comes back and forth, you can't really affect change in a good way. Not without really hurting things and having lots of headlines anyway. Spark programs, this is something we do in TrustPilot. Instead of security champions, we have a security champion, privacy, and risk champions. We roll them all into one so they can actually think about what we care about, not what some person in security thinks and then what person risk thinks, that they might actually clash with each other. Privacy and security might have challenging concerns. What we want is for our Sparks to focus on what is important as a whole to TrustPilot and act accordingly and let us know accordingly. And then we look at Purple Team activities. We like to break things, tear it apart, pull it apart. It's not about, I think in the earlier speech, about telling people off. It's about giving honest feedback in a report, being able to hear what they are also saying as well. And then establishing trust. Once you have that back and forth, you get to build great things. You get to push towards the future. We have a lot of AI. We use something called TrustLayer. There's a QR code if you do want to check it out. It allows sentiment analysis, intelligence. Obviously, this also comes with a great risk. It's artificial intelligence. A lot of people don't really know what's going on under the hood, even if they say they do. I used to build machine learning systems in a former life. I know a little bit about them, but I wouldn't say I know exactly what goes on in generative AI, right? And I don't think anybody does. We're all helping each other find this out. And I think that's, it's really important to keep that going. I think another thing is a lot of tools we might rely on to use AI, right? If we are, for example, CodePilot or other tools that help with, we always need that human element to stay. Because if we're relying on CodePilot to build something, which is good because it's incredibly efficient, we also need that human element to check what is that actually valid, because if we have an AI tool that second checks all of our work, that's really something checking its own homework. We generally frown upon that. That's why we have code review. So why do we allow two tools to talk to each other and check their own stuff, right? So just something to bear in mind. So I guess with all that in mind, we then have what I would like to call Maslow's hierarchy of cybersecurity needs. Before we do anything, we actually need to rely on sources of trust. We have to trust things. I don't really like the term zero trust because of this very nature. You do have to trust things. I think much more accurate is kind of extreme, extreme restriction of resources, right? Only share when you need to. But reliable sources of trust to start, that allows us to give qualitative data, makes more informed decisions, into actionable tasks, giving remediations where we get feedback from engineers to help. We collaborate, we don't dictate. We might collaborate strongly if they don't ignore us, but hopefully not. And then hopefully then we're valued as a team. I think that's it. Thank you.